So, Sudha, you were a radio jockey
That's
at one
correct.
point in your career. I mean, let's talk about that. That's because you've had all this success in corporate America. You worked on amazing things for amazing brands, which we're going to cover. But let's start there because that's just a little bit of an outlier in your profile.
Sure. Honestly, it was a hobby. It wasn't a career choice I made, but what happened was I graduated at the time when I was in the middle of job. This is 2001 recession and I'm still looking for a job and I didn't know what to do. While I was adding to my skills, my hobbies turned up and this was probably the best time for me to enjoy what, I really wanted to do. So I found out about this radio program that was hosted in Pennsylvania. This is where we were short time because of my husband's job. And there was this program called Music of India. So they were looking for people who could come and host that program. And I just readily volunteered a couple of times, few tests, and they selected me. So I decided to host that program for multiple weeks and months. It went by and it was very enjoyable. I really enjoyed that time. But the funny thing is, when you ask me now, 20 years back, when I look back, and the people who are joining the corporate world, when they look at my profile, and if I say I was a radio jockey, people who are used to iPods of the world and don't listen to radio that often, they ask
Right.
me, what is RJ? It sounds so funny coming from their mouth because they're doing that nitpick. Hey, what is RJ? We don't know about RJ. We know about DJs. We know about other things. But yeah, I look back and I think it gave me very immense skills to be spontaneous because any
Right.
question can come
Right.
up during
Yeah.
that radio jockey program because it was more of an interactive program. You say something, you open up the lines for the people to come and interact with you. Any question can come up and you need to be spontaneous because you have to constantly engage your audience. So
That's
I
right.
believe that skill helped me in my product management journey as I embraced that.
I love where you're going with that. There's a saying that goes something to the effect of how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And what came up for me when I saw that was the word that came up for me was boldness. Like there's a sense of decisiveness, boldness. And the reason I bring that up is because I want to transition into it took a lot of guts to do what you did next. You came out in a recession, 2001. And I remember the 2001 recession. It had an impact on people and the psychology of the marketplace. But you decided that you were going to go out and create your own luck. You were going to apply some hard work and create your own luck. And why don't you tell us what you did? Because it's a pretty cool story.
Sure. I think the situations makes you do certain things and make certain choices for you, which are extraordinary. They were not born from the regular standard run of the mill
Right.
things otherwise you would have done. It's 2001, if you vividly remember, I graduated in August and then September 11th happened and I graduated without a job. By the time we have already started seeing most of the companies were on hiring freeze or either laying off people.
Okay.
I graduated. I was an international student on visa, needed a job. Some of my friends during that time, I remember they extended their college programs because they didn't want to graduate without a job, didn't know how to manage the expenses. As a student, at least, you have some on-campus jobs and you can at least take care of some of the things and then you stay in the status by being student. I made a slightly different choice. I thought let me graduate and let me try my best and put 100% of my time in looking for a job. I tried and then, luck had other choices. And I realized that just online posting is not going to help. What I did, I started printing out the list of all the companies that were hiring in the neighborhood and were at a drivable distance from
Right.
me. So I started going from one company to another. I'll do, at that point of time, Google Maps or Yahoo Maps were not that famous. So I will jot my plan on which company am I going to go first, second. I'll print out the directions on a paper and start driving. I had printed copies of my resume. If any position has listed who the hiring manager was, I'll knock at the company's door, go to the reception, front desk, request them if they can call the hiring manager so that I can give the resume in the hand. So in many cases, it worked out. Many cases, it didn't. Only the front desk will take my resume, but I never gave up. So this practice continued for a few months. And then finally, luck had it. And then there was this company called Macrovision in Santa Clara, California.
Right.
The person who was listed there, her name, I still remember, her name was Lynn Kelly. She came out and she picked my resume and she took it from me and she said, yes, we are hiring for this position. But you know what, looking at your resume, you seems to be overqualified for this. If this position comes to you, will you accept it? I said, absolutely, I'll accept it. She said, okay, I'll give it to the hiring manager and good luck. And then rest is history. This was my first interview. I appeared there and then, then the offer came. But this was my story. And behind that, there were a lot of I would say disappointments. There's an incident I remember where I called the front desk person. I requested the front desk person to call the hiring manager without asking the reason. She said, okay. And she called the person. Now the person came downstairs and he looked at me. Of course, I was not a familiar face. And then he asked me, what do you want? I said, I looked at this position in your team and I'm very interested because my skill sets probably match it. And here's my resume. He took my resume and he was a little disappointed because maybe he has to leave the important meeting to come downstairs to see who's looking for him, or it was something else. And then he took it. He went to the front desk. He scolded that lady and said, without asking the reason, you shouldn't just call me anytime. I felt little sad for the disappointment on that front desk person's face, because it wasn't her fault. She was just doing her job. I requested the person and she diligently called the person. But I felt a little bad about it, that because of me that she has to hear. So there are certain disappointments where it stayed with me, some of those experiences. But at the end, it all worked out well.
No, I love that, because I also love that you touched on the vulnerability of it, right? Because, it sounds to me like there were moments when your confidence would crash, disappointment, rejection. It was a crash course in resilience, maybe for lack of a better term. Is that resonating with you at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
as a product manager, it's 100%. As a human being, yes, indeed.
Yes.
And even as a product manager, it resonates very well with me because, when we build a product, it's meant for resiliency. We do not want it to crash in any situations. We look at all the corner cases. So this always keeps reminding me that be on your toes. Yeah. Look at the situations where the product can be vulnerable, human being can be vulnerable. So there's so many parallels that you can draw from these experiences, which makes you a better human being and a better product manager in your career.
Right, because in Jim Collins' famous book, Good to Great, which I can't believe is over 20 years old right now, right? But Good to Great, right? He talks about all the energy it takes to get this flywheel going, right? So you're getting this flywheel going. You're beginning to get it going. It's not going full speed yet, but it's beginning to. You become a product manager, which is a very important role. Right? That's like being a mini GM for a product, right? You have to think it through and it's strategic, and it's a very all-encompassing role. At that time, I'm just curious, were you often the only woman in the room?
When I started my career as a college hire, when I look back, you're right, because I have often been in tech fields. I joined as a software engineer and then moved into product management. And as I started climbing the ladder, I realized that, majority of the time, Ruben, I was the only woman in the room.
Yeah.
It doesn't come to you naturally during that time when other people are speaking. You need to raise your voice. This skill is an acquired skill. It took me time to get there. In the beginning, my knowing that I'm the only one and I may be different, I may be thinking differently, and maybe I have an opinion which is different from others, I will mostly stay quiet. And this continued for years. I'll only raise my voice if my opinion is aligning with everybody. And I just want to say, yeah, I agree with all of you guys. This is amazing, or or something very positive.
Okay.
It's not the diversity of voice, but just aligning the voice, being a part of the team. I did covering. Most of the people say that we should avoid covering, which is don't try to fit in and be like one of the people. But I tried. I actually tried. I thought, coming from India, maybe my accent wasn't aligned. Maybe I dress up differently. Maybe I look differently. Maybe I speak differently. And then, in tech, you'll not see too many women in the room. So all of it had an impact on me. Where the things started changing when I took a leadership position in women in technology in Yahoo. When I started hearing other women, then I realized it doesn't matter. There are women of color, there are women who are they're white women. But overall, if you look at it, the diversity is skewed. And at that point of time, when I started seeing other people talking about the issues that they're facing, it felt that I went through the same journey. Now, just because I didn't raise my voice, I didn't respectfully say that this is incorrect or, it should be done differently. I have not left the place better than I found it. Now, the result of that is everyone who's walking their journey, walking through the same path, is feeling the same problems, and no one is doing anything to help. That was my first association with women in technology or being a part of the diversity forum. At that point of time, something clicked with me, and I realized that I need to be a voice. I cannot just let this happen because maybe I have immense tolerance and I can do everything, I can handle everything, and not let that disappoint me. But that's not paving a good path for anyone else going to walk that path. So being in the room was at times very difficult. But as I grew in my career, I realized that, though I'm the only woman in the room many times, I'm also at a leadership position where I can pivot the conversation to be more inclusive. Now, I am super, super cautious if I see other women in the room who are in minority in some way. And if I see the conversation going one way and these people have not raised their voices, I actually turn the table and ask them, do you agree with this? Or, do you have anything else to say? Or what do you think about it? That way, I think people feel more inclusive and things are changing a bit, I would say.
I love that. So you saw other women, so you gave yourself permission based on what you were seeing around you. Now you're being proactive because you've been on the other side of that table. So I get that. But it was also courageous, right? So it feels like building a muscle. Did you get more courageous over time, voicing and speaking up? And was there a moment when maybe you started getting feedback, like people liked your input, like people actually liked having you part of the conversation? They liked what you were saying. Was there some of that kind of validation?
I would say yes, but it only happened slowly when I asked for feedback on that front. And I had an imposter syndrome where I would say that maybe I said something, but I don't know whether it went well or not.
Okay.
But slowly, and I would say sometimes we still need validations. So at that point of time, from my manager and from my peers, at times when we build great relationship, I'll ask them, how do you perceive that conversation? What was your opinion? Did you agree with me? And I realized that people did value my opinion a lot, actually. Yeah. And slowly, Ruben, you'll start seeing in people's reactions. Many times, if you're quiet, even if you have nothing more to add, people may look at you and say, Sudha, do you want to add anything? Do you agree with this? And at that point of time, I thought, things are changing. People are more inclusive of me and people do value my opinion, and that I can see in actions. So to be honest, I actually felt that, in the beginning, it was that imposter syndrome of asking for validation. Eventually, you started seeing in actions by the people, and then you realize that what you're saying is being valued.
I love that. And so, in every great story, and I love your story, there's a twist. There's usually a pretty interesting counterintuitive twist. And you decided to actually go back to your country of birth, which is India, and you decided to take an expat assignment in India, which is, I would just love to talk about that. Let's talk about what led to that and what came out of that and what was your experience like going back.
I love my journey of, being an expat in an entirely different country. You're right. India is the country of my birth and I've grown up loving that country. I left the country in 1999 to came here and then start a career and build a life for myself. And then US has been a home. Then in 2015, Flipkart, which is India's largest e-commerce company, I think they had a small recruiting team in the United States that reached out to say that, hey, we have an opportunity we'd like to explore if you're interested. So it just started over a cup of coffee in Palo Alto, and then things started becoming serious, some web interviews, and then, a full-fledged interview. I would say till then, I wasn't sold that this is what I'm going to do. It was completely exploratory thing that I wanted to do. So when I went there, I went for an interview. I realized that something changed. I realized the seriousness of this interview. I realized the talent that I was talking to is amazing. These are the people that I would love to work with, whether it's in United States or in Silicon Valley. So I became super serious. That night, I remember my first day of the interview, I didn't sleep. I prepared a presentation. I talked about like why I should be here, why I should be here, and why Flipkart matters, how my experience aligns. It was a great conversation. I came back, and when the offer came again, back to my normal life, I'm doing very well at Yahoo. There was not the first thought that we need to move back to India. But when me and my husband started thinking about the pros and cons, I realized this was more than just a job. Right. Yes, it was a career opportunity for me to lead as head of products for customer experiences at Flipkart, lead a big team, and the amazing chance to transform how the customer experiences work. Besides that, it was also a connection back with India. My kids who are born in United States, they know that they're kids of Indian origin, but they had not seen India by then. They had no idea how the lifestyle is. And possibly they didn't even understand what privilege is. So I wanted to show them a country where, people still live below poverty line and people are humble in certain ways because, every day the things that we consider here as necessities or table stakes are luxuries in that country. So we decided this might be a great opportunity for us to connect our kids to their roots one time. Learn about.
I love that. Yeah, a very immersive experience for them with regards to their heritage, right? A very immersive experience with regards to their heritage. And that obviously went really, really well. And then it seems like in your career, there's something that shifted around this time. I'm not quite sure when, but where you had been bold, speaking up, persistent, making courageous choices, that flywheel started really moving fast and opportunities started coming to you. Is that correct? Like there came a point when like really good stuff started, like I guess Flipkart came to you. Maybe that was the beginning of it. But can we talk a little bit about that? Like where things shift, where you end up being on the receiving end of some pretty incredible advancement.
You can possibly say that, Ruben. That way, when I looked at, my career, the last position the last company that I worked for, where I applied for the job myself, was Yahoo.
Yeah.
After that, all my jobs happened to be when the companies reached out to me. So you're possibly right. And I feel very gifted and thankful about it. Part of it is that people who worked with me, they have gone and referred me in the systems, and somewhere, the companies have approached because of that reason. Another thing can be the reputation, because many times I feel the companies are looking for people who have demonstrated success in their career and built products at scale. And besides that, who people will love to work with them again. So possibly I am lucky where I felt that people do want to work with me again, and the success that I've demonstrated in terms of product growth, in terms of people growth, advancement in the success stories have been liked. And the result of that is that companies have reached out. So Flipkart was one company. Again, the company is based in India. How did an India-based company get to know about me? I have no idea, but once they reached out, things became a bit serious. But to your point, you're absolutely right. This was a pivot point in my career where instead of me looking for next career move, the right companies were looking for me. So sometimes they say what you seek is seeking you. So I think that was a good learning for myself, and I started believing more in myself.
I love that, and I also love the fact that. My impression is that you hadn't thought about Flipkart. You're currently at another Fortune 100. You had a Fortune 100 company. You're GM at a Fortune 100 company. It's fantastic. They weren't quite on your radar, correct? These were opportunities that found you. Right. And is it fair to say in some ways they ended up being better or are better than what you could have dreamt of yourself? Like if you're just living an open life to what was coming your way, so to speak.
You're right. I would say I'm not a super aggressive person, and let me admit it very openly. It's not that I'm always looking for a job, what to do next, and what should be my next career move. At times, the opportunities have presented themselves, which really felt like, what am I doing here? If I don't take it, someone else will. So why don't I take it and make something out of it? So you're absolutely right. I wasn't looking for Flipkart, cross continents and entirely a different space. But when the company found me and when I look at the opportunity was not just about, as I said, career. It was all about what my family can learn from it. It's a new place, location. There's so much learning that I can do and I can contribute back that may not automatically happen in my just next job in Silicon Valley. So that way, I would say you're absolutely right about it, and I'm very glad I made that choice.
Yeah, I mean, let's end with some final words of wisdom, right? There's sense out there that we might be heading into a recession if we're not in one already. That there's a lot of fear associated with words. Have you ever noticed that? Like one word will bring up a lot of fear, right? Rational or irrational. What would you say, based on a lot of your experiences, your twist and turn, what's some words of advice for people right now, and when to stay, when to go, how to think through their career and opportunities? Anything that comes up for you as a final word of advice for anyone who might be looking for a little bit of hope right now or insight?
Yeah. I would say that, someone who graduated during recession and have gone through two recessions, 2008 after that, and now seeing that maybe the industry is headed towards a third recession, my advice to the people is evaluate. There's no right or wrong time to change the company. I completely understand if you're unhappy in your job, this might be the right time, but evaluate before you go. Look at the fundamentals of the company. Look at the financials of the company. Look at the job profile before you make a choice. The grass at times on the other side looks greener. So do not just jump for the sake of it. Right. Depending on what your family situation is. If you're the breadwinner and you're in a stable job, then this might or might not be the best time for you to change. But if you're a risk taker and then you have the financial super sound and you are evaluating a startup which may go amazingly do well in the recession, this might be a chance. So I would say evaluate based on certain parameters what is important for you. There might be some great opportunities waiting for you and there might not be. Like in 2008, I would say I moved to Yahoo. That was a career change. Yahoo at that point of time was not doing very well, but then the opportunity worked out very well for me in terms of learning experience, in terms of growth experience.
Right.
So there could be both sides. So the ideal thing for the person is to evaluate what it means for them in terms of role and opportunity and the company. That will be my advice. I think what I'm thinking is for those people, my advice is don't panic. Things like these happen. It's completely okay. Just stay focused. Go tap on your network. Reach out to the right people who are aware of the internal positions which are open and where the hiring might be going on. This is the time to leverage your network. Do not panic. There are some very good companies which are still hiring. Reach out to them. And then just like I did, the first day of the job, giving my resumes, many times doing something out of the box helps. So stand out in certain ways.